Welcome all. Thank you for being here. Just want to welcome you to the Medical Support Authority class. My name is Omaira, and I welcome you. This is being conducted by VISN 8 HRD, and we are glad that you're here. In today's class, we're going to go over some highlights about this topic, Medical Support Authority, and hopefully this can be of help in the work that you do on a daily basis. But before we begin, I like to begin by going over some housekeeping items. And just to let you know that this training is specifically targeted for HR employees. If you don't meet this, we kindly ask you to log off the class, as this is only for HR staff or HR employees. And we thank you for that. And I just want to make a little note that I want to thank you for signing back up for this class. Last week, I had a literally last second, it was, let's just put it this way, it was an electrical emergency. So thank you so much for signing up for it. Thank you for your patience, and I hope that this is helpful for you. And the last but not least, if you have any questions throughout the course of the class, I'm going to ask you to just write them down. And then at the end of the class, then we'll open up for questions. And I always like to say I have been in HR in the VA since 2009. I think I have acquired a little bit of knowledge about HR in Title 38, Title 5, and hybrids. With that said, I don't think that I know everything. So in the case that, something comes up or a question comes up that I cannot give you a full answer, I will definitely take it back, look into it further, and I will get back to you. Okay, and I'll definitely get back to the entire team, to everyone that's online, just to make sure that we can clarify whatever the question was. Okay, so I just like to do that little bit of a disclaimer. So as you know, the points of contact for this, it's our team. We are the VISN 8 HRD team, and I want to introduce my team. And we are led by our HRD chief, which is Marcus James. Our team is composed of Lisette Lima, Valerie McKinney, Samantha Montalvo, Angel Torres Morales, Luis Torres, and myself, Omaira Bedward. The learning objectives for this class are to describe the medical support authority and when it can be used, to document and justify the medical support appointments, to include research positions, and lastly, to use the appropriate nature of action and legal authority for medical support appointments. There are multiple references regarding this subject, medical support authority. There, obviously, we go by what the handbook tells us, VA 5005. The main guidance, you're going to find it on Part 2, Chapter 3. But there are also some HRMLs that complement this or that bring clarity to the subject, and those are HRML 050903, HRML 051302. And I always love this resource. I hope that you guys take advantage of it. I think I mentioned it in every class. If you ever want to look for a good reference, always look up HR notes. They have multiple notes there, quick references per subject in sections. So they happen to have it for medical support authority, so I included it here. It's a very quick and easy resource that can give you the gist of what this is. And there is a job aid, so we're including it here. There's also another part of the 5005, and I wasn't able to put it on display, but I included the link at the bottom of this page right here. Now, before we move forward, I thought that I just want to clarify what we're going to talk about today, and that is that we're going to talk about medical support authority, not the medical support assistant position. I think that these two terms get somewhat intertwined or probably, confused one with the other, although one can become one. But we are talking about the time-limited appointment, okay? So with that clarification, we're going to move forward. Now, this is the HR note, and I thought that they did a really good job on the introduction, and I figured let's just go over it real quick because I think it'll bring clarity. So now that we've clarified about the Medical Support Authority, let's see what it says under the note. Okay, listen to what it says. In the VHA, we typically use the term Medical Support Authority. Yet a simple word search for that common phrase will not yield consistent results. This is an instance where our use of terminology can be misunderstood without the proper context. In this HR resource, in this HR note, when we refer to Medical Support Authority, we're referring to the use of a time-limited appointment for medical support personnel. Okay, and I'm just going to read a little bit more from this note because I think it's important. And it's going to be very technical and very dry, but please bear with me. The terminology about the appointments and things like that are things that we have to understand what they are, what they mean, so we can apply them correctly. So these are the requirements by law. By law, under Section 7405, parenthesis A, parenthesis 1 of Title 38, the USC, the United States Code, the VA is allowed to appoint individuals identified under what we call full-time or full Title 38. Let me make full Title 38 and hybrid Title 38 into temporary and part-time positions. So the law stipulates in 38 USC 7405 that we may use this appointment to employ, and may use this appointment authority to employ other professionals, clerical, technical, and unskilled personnel, including interns, residents, trainees, students in medical support programs. So the VA guidance in this handbook subsequent to the HRMLs, they define further the law and they provide guidance and require justification and documentation for the usage or to use this appointing authority. Okay, it is important to look at the entirety of the section of 7405A1 to fully understand this appointment authority and other usages. So just what that says is that 7405 authority is done, and they made this little parenthesis in the regulation that although it's meant for something else, they have made the passage that it can be used to appoint personnel, medical personnel, for specific reasons, which we're going to go into a little bit further, okay? So I know it's a little bit dry, but I figure I go over it because I think it's important, okay? All right, so this is if you have taken my classes, I like to cite the regulation. I like to go to it. I like to read it. I was telling somebody earlier that I just don't trust what everybody else tells me. I like to go and see it. So this is where the guidance is, okay? And I spent probably like 14 years in staffing. So I felt that when I went to a manager before it was time to recruit, I would look into the vacancies that they had or the needs that they had, and I try to have somewhat of an idea of what, the things that they needed. But when you meet with your hiring managers, you can collaborate and discuss if this medical support authority is a good and effective recruitment strategy for their medical support needs. Okay, so medical support authority is an authority that, according to the regulation here, the regulation says that its primary use is to obtain the services of physicians, dentists, nurses, and other individuals in the occupations identified in the 7401, parenthesis 1, and 7401, parenthesis 3. So those of you that have been in staffing and have been staffing positions for quite some time know that those positions that I just read are the full Title 38 positions, right? So the intent of this authority is to staff those positions, full Title 38 and hybrid Title 38. Okay. Now, however, it may be used under certain conditions to obtain the services of medical support personnel in occupations other than those identified in the 7401, parenthesis 1, and the 7401, parenthesis 3, Title 38, and hybrids Title 38. Okay. On a temporary basis, when it is impractical to obtain the necessary services through regular competitive employment procedures. So this is the meat of this authority. Okay. It is used when on a temporary basis when it is impractical to obtain the necessary services through regular competitive employment procedures. The temporary medical support authority is meant to be a tool to meet urgent staffing needs when normal Title V appointments process are impractical. And it is not, and I got to repeat this a couple of times, it is not to be used to circumvent the Title V competitive process. It is not. That cannot be the reason why you are offering it to the hiring manager as a recruitment strategy. Okay, so let's see. Let's keep going. So this is the first HERMO. This was released July 15, 2009. And this HERMO provides guidance and clarifies on the appropriate use of the 38 USC 7405, parenthesis A, parenthesis 1, to appoint medical support personnel on a temporary basis when it is impractical to obtain the necessary services through regular competitive employment procedures. We read that already, but on the guidance, but the HERMO reiterates it. So you have to make sure that one thing that you're not going to see or that you shouldn't see on regulation is that one is changing what the main regulation says. This is just clarifying and expanding on it. It may be used under certain conditions. We said that already, to obtain the services of medical support personnel in occupations other than those in Title 38 or the hybrids. Now, one of the provisions of this HERMO in particular, 050903, it states that an appropriate use of this authority is to fill research medical support positions below the grade of GS11. Okay. Now, such for things like a research project. Okay. When candidates when the hiring manager finds a candidate or knows of a candidate and says, hey, listen, I want to hire this person right on the spot. They will be ideal for this. I think that they meet all the qualifications. They bring it over to you. You review the person. You review the qualifications, and you're like, okay, this is a good fit, a good match. It meets all of the other, regulations. Then it can be done. Okay. Now, the candidate, it would be a 2-year temporary appointment that would allow the VA to hire the candidate without further delay. Okay, so this authority helps you to do a quick hire. Okay, now on the highlights of this HERMO, it identifies that you're not able to fill the position through regular competitive procedures. So let's say that they've been trying to hire for that position over and over. They've released the announcement several times. It doesn't draw any good applicants. They come across that gem of an applicant, and that's when the authority can be used. Okay. Now, this HERM only says that it's only for research positions up to the GS11. Only full-time appointments can be more than a year, and you can make those appointments eligible for benefits if they're more than a year. In my experience, when I wanted to make sure that the person, and we had discussed it, and it made all the other things that were allowed, we wanted to give that person benefits, which would just make it a year and a day. If we were not sure how much longer we needed, a year and a day would guarantee to give them the benefits. Now, temporary full-time appointments of this nature can be not exceed 3 years. So you would do them for 3 years. Okay. And then the part-time, there's one thing really important about this type of authority is that the part-time or intermittent not to exceed, it could only be done for a year. Okay. Now, let me see. I think I want to read this because I think it's important. So Title V may be used under certain conditions. Let's see what this paragraph, and I highlighted it here, and I might be repeating myself, but I want to read it. Okay. It says, many facilities report having a scarcity of qualified candidates for Title V medical support vacancies. Under these circumstances, when qualified candidates are located, the ability to make a firm job offer as soon as possible is critical. Many report losing qualified candidates due to the delays in required competitive appointment process. The provision contained in 5005, Part 2, Chapter 3, Section G, Paragraph 6, are intended to provide a mechanism to allow appointment of candidates without delay or in other circumstances where the use of the Title V appointment process is not practical. So this is actually a scenario, and it is within that HERMO. So just wanted to bring it to your attention that the HERMO actually, gives, I think, a very good detail of what can be done. Now, a big reminder, and it's actually under HERMO as well, and is this paragraph. You probably can't see it. It's a little bit small, but I think it's paragraph B. And it says, when using the temporary medical support appointments authority for placing candidates into Title V positions, the referral process for preference eligibles will be applied following principles of veterans preference in Title V. So remember to observe veterans preference, okay, if you're referring anyone. Now, when using this authority, appointees should be advised in writing that the conversion to a permanent appointment is not guaranteed, okay? And that the temporary appointment will be discontinued when the Title V competitive hiring process is completed. And that is in paragraph D of that HERMO. One technical note that was on the slides or on the information that was provided is that this gets filed on the temporary side of the EOPF. Now, when you fill a position like this, remember, I think I've said it a few times already, that this is a temporary appointment. Steps must be taken immediately to initiate the normal Title V competitive hiring process. Okay, and this is also reiterated on the HERMO. So I'm going to make a parenthesis here because in my experience, many years ago, I was at a facility that they didn't use it specifically for this, but it was the same temporary appointment authority. And the managers were very, very persistent in just utilizing this as, the way that they were staffing. And I kept telling them, listen, you can't utilize this, just as a repetitive, perpetual appointment, as a temporary appointment, because it has, a time frame. And the intent, if you look at the regulation, staffing, when you recruit, the intent to fill positions is to fill them either full-time, part-time, or intermittent. Now, all these other, things that they have provided for us to help the managers fill those positions are what I called band-aids. These are not permanent solutions, okay? So when you present this to your hiring managers, just make sure that you present it in that manner. This is just a temporary solution, for your needs. So we must get on board and we must right away start the recruitment process. Okay, so I just wanted to reiterate that because I know managers can be very persistent. They hear just bits and pieces of a recruitment strategy or how it worked for somebody else. But like I've said many times on my previous presentations, is that you look at the entire scenario, you look at the entire picture, and don't let anyone force you to just, do things just because they said it could be done. Go by the guidance, go back to the books, and I'll move on, because if not, I'll stay there all day long. All right, next HERMO, 051302. So this is a separate HERMO that came after. It was released when? January 24, 2013. Okay, and it provides additional guidance and clarification on the appropriate use of 38 USC 7405, which is a temporary appointment, to appoint medical support personnel, okay, on a temporary basis in support of research projects in the VA. Now, the HERMO says it very clearly that this does not rescind the previous HERMO. So you have to take a look at both if you're going to utilize this guidance, okay? And now, this HERMO expands the medical support authority by allowing temporary appointments at the GS11 level and above for certain research positions. So the previous HERMO said that you could use this authority to appoint research positions up to the GS11. Now, this HERMO is telling you that, they have expanded that above the GS11. And let me see if okay. So next. Now, the duration of the appointments. Now, the 51302 HERMO, there's a note on it. And paragraph E highlights that only full-time appointments can be made for more than 1 year under this authority. Now, full-time appointments under this authority may be renewed for one or more additional periods not to exceed 3 years each. Only those appointments for more than a year are eligible for benefits. And part-time and intermittent medical support appointments are limited by statute for 1 year or less and are not renewable. So if you think that this is a good strategy for your managers to fill a position on a part-time or intermittent basis, just know that you cannot go beyond that year. So I don't know, I would be very cautious to offer that as a strategy. Now, if you use and you appoint somebody under this authority, a remark must be placed on the employee's SF50, specifying that if it's specifically for research, if specifying that is for a research project that the employee is supporting. So you have to make sure that you include that remark, okay? I don't know if there's an actual remark in that log that we have, in that list of remarks that we have, but if anything, you just do a 999 and you add it. Now, the appropriate use of this authority, and now you can find this as well on the HERMO 050903, okay? And they state that is awaiting the completion of Title V competitive process. So if you're waiting, I don't know, there's delays many times that happen where, it's inevitable that you're just waiting. And, it's been a delay, or I think that the one thing that just came to mind, and I didn't think of this before when I was working on this class, is I don't know if you have to do like a Passover or something that's going to take a little bit of time, and it's just one position that they have to fill, and they can't fill it because they have to wait for that result. I'm just thinking that maybe then, given all of the other things fall in place, okay, and don't quote me, don't come and say later on, Omaira said that if you are in the process, that's not what I'm saying. I just thought about it quickly, and I'm just thinking that if everything else falls into place and not knowing all, making sure that all of the other details meet the guidance, maybe that's one way that you can utilize this appointing authority if you come across that perfect candidate that meets all of the requirements. So that's one of the appropriate uses of the authority. Now, another one is awaiting the receipt of a competitive certificate of eligibles. Another one is to, if there is the stand of a new clinic or a CBOC or a care unit, which is pending the hiring of permanent staff when providing benefits, and that you can provide benefits to the position. So if they're trying to hire for a specific clinic, unit, or whatever, and they're still, in that process of recruitment and they can't fill the position yet, and there comes their Mr. Superstar applicant that meets all the requirements, then you can probably use the authority, but you got to make sure that in writing you provide them with the written notice that this is not guaranteeing that this is going to be converted into a permanent position. Okay, now the inappropriate use of the authority and HERMO 050903 identifies what these are also. So, in the HERMO, they say that, due to oversight and effectiveness service O&E audits, they identified inappropriate use of this authority in two specific areas. And these were appointing of non-medical support staff, Title V administrative, technical, and trade positions not typically identified as medical support positions, and also the successive appointments in a position on a temporary basis when the position was continuous in nature without initiating any recruitment actions under the normal competitive processes. So, the O&E, I don't know if anyone has gone through that type of audit. I think I went through it twice, and I went through a cards review 3 times. And they do, honestly, these are the things that they actually look for, because these, like I said before, temporary appointments are just that. They're not perpetual. Okay. So it also says, under no circumstances may this authority be used to circumvent the competitive employment procedures, the competitive system pay limitations, and the qualifications required for competitive appointments. So, they cannot, the managers cannot ask you to utilize this just so they can fill the position and not have to recruit, basically, the normal way. Now, this is from the handbook, the 5005 part 2 chapter 3. It identifies what's the criteria for appointing medical support personnel. It's here. I'm not going to go through it. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's on the screen, but there is a criteria. So make sure that you meet that if you are discussing this with the manager, the hiring manager. Now, documentation. You must, if you know anything about HR, you must have a full record that can be, constructed, and show what the recruitment process was, with the approvals and all that. So with that said, you must document the use of this authority for each appointment. So there's a template that is part of the HERMOS that will tell you what is needed as far as the documentation for each appointment. Okay. The documentation is to be maintained in the competitive case file for a 2-year retention period. And we're going to take a closer look at the attachment, which tells us at the template. Let me just go over. And that is what it looks like. It's at the end of the HERMO. And like I said, you need one for each appointment. You can just do a blanket one for, 5 positions for the service or whatever. This right here is the link to where the HERMO is located. Yeah, that's an important note to make. Several years back, we had an O&E at a facility that I was with review, and sure enough, they picked, I think it was like 97 records, and just as a sampling. And the records that they looked at were everything that had to do with pay, everything that had to do with temporary appointments, everything that had to do with fee-basis appointments, which are also temporary appointments, anything that had to do with things like that. So it is really, really important. I think that I didn't mention it before, but I think that when you are discussing recruitment strategies with your hiring managers, that before you suggest something, that you really go and look at, what the regulation says, and not promise something that you really can't deliver. And I say that because on that O&E review that we had, there were, I guess, actions that were processed, and they did pick all these temporary appointments. And those were the appointments that, because of that O&E, in that week, we had to terminate people left and right because it was some kind of violation. So please get versed. Please go spend a little bit of extra time, because it affected people's life, trying to correct the actions in the system. So I just like to highlight that, because we might think sometimes, the system took it, the system, and honestly, the ones that they always pick are the ones that have issues. So just beware, be careful. Let's see. Let's go to the next one. So the other HERMO also has an attachment. This is HERMO 051302. This is the one that extends the appointments above the GS11 for research. Again, you have to justify each appointment, and these require approval. Okay. Now, this is the attachment. Another thing that I like to highlight is that on the justification, it can be, we couldn't fill it, it was difficult to recruit or something like that. It has to be something that, if you said it was difficult to recruit, that you provide how many announcements you released, how many applicants were referred, how many, applicants didn't meet, how many times you had to, expand the area of consideration to recruit again. So it has to be a justification that is solid. It can't be just, I can't fill the position. So just make sure that, when you are filling these out, or you ask the managers to help you fill these out, that, that they're properly and with a proper strong justification. Now, they have released a job aid, which is the number is 05 RP 015.003. And it tells you that they reiterates the same thing. It is meant to be a tool to meet the urgent staffing needs when normal Title V appointment processes are impractical, and it's not used to circumvent the Title V competitive process. It guides you. It has other information in there, but it addresses the temporary medical support authority appointments for part-time and full-time. So you have that as a resource as well. Now, on the HERML 051302, they highlight that there is a new legal authority code that was established specifically for the appointments and conversions of the research project employees, and that legal authority is C04. So make sure that, read the HERMLs completely, because, it gives you everything that you need, actually. And with that, we're just going to go into one of my favorites resources. The link is here. I will provide it at the end of the chat. For the class, I'm sorry. These are the nature of actions and the legal authorities. This is how you're going to enter the action in HR Smart. So for medical support authority, we know it's a new appointment. Not to exceed is a 171. If it's a conversion, the person is on, you're extending that that appointment. It's a conversion, it's a 571, not to exceed. And then the legal authority for that is the C72. Now for the medical support, let me just go into the other screen because I think it highlights it better. For the chart actually includes the difference for the regular medical support positions and for the research. So just make sure that you go ahead and you use the appropriate one for the appropriate position, okay? And it tells you what the nature of action is, and it tells you what the legal authority is as well. Okay. All right. I think I've spoken a little bit too much, and I always like to include in my classes somewhat of a scenario. These are simple. I'm just trying to have you think a little bit from what we just went over, and I'm going to ask you to provide your response on the chat. I didn't prepare a poll. I didn't want to do that. I just want to, see what your responses are to this scenario, and I'm just going to read it out loud. A new CBAC will open next month in Dutchess County. The clinic will need medical support personnel on a permanent basis. Now, Jane Smith meets all requirements and qualifications of the vacant health system specialist position at a new CBAC in Dutchess. Can the medical support authority be used to appoint Mrs. Smith to the health system specialist position on a temporary basis pending the hiring of permanent staff? And I see a lot of yeses. And I think I probably missed it, but one of the HERMLs I actually identifies what are considered some, not all, but they mentioned some of the positions that are considered medical support, and health system specialist was one of them. So it's good to read those HERMLs completely, because sometimes you get little nuggets and a little bit more clarification on what they're looking for. Now, let's look at this other scenario. Let's see. The hiring manager of the logistics section has requested to use the medical support authority to hire a logistics specialist. He heard this is a quick and easy way to appoint a staff without having to do the long recruited process. How would you categorize this as an appropriate use of the authority or to inappropriate use of the authority? A or B? I see B's. I think I put 1 and 2, but I meant A and B. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Yes. Perfect. That's inappropriate. He's trying to circumvent the regular Title V recruitment process. Awesome. Very good. And let's do one more. The medical support authority should be used to appoint medical support personnel on a blank basis when it's not practical to recruit typical competitive procedures. And it's A, B, or C. Again, I put 1 and 3, 1, 2, 3, but I meant A, B, and C. So it's either permanent, It's either temporary or it's a fee basis. While you have a sip of my coffee. So I see temporary, temporary B, 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 B. Excellent. Yes. I think I said it too many times, but I wanted to drive the point home that this is a temporary appointment. It's not perpetual. It's not forever. Don't let them force you to do that. Go by the guidance and you should be okay. All right. So I'm going to try to launch again my polls, which I had a little bit of a challenge because they disappeared on me. And let's see, let me launch it. So if you don't mind responding to these, and I just launched it and it disappeared. Oh my world. Let's try it again. Okay. I don't see it. I don't know if my team can see it or not, but it's not coming out. Okay, well, you know what? Just provide me the response on the chat. So the question is, you can use medical support authority to hire any Title V positions to urgently fill a critical position. True or false? Put your answers on the chat. And I see, let's see, I see B, I see false, I see fee, I see false. Excellent. And let's try to do the next one. Perfect. Good job, guys. And then the next one is temporary medical support authority is meant to be a tool to meet urgent staffing needs when normal Title V appointments processes are impractical and is not to be used to circumvent Title V competitive process. So please let me know if that's true or is that false, and just put it on the chat. And I see a lot of people that knew that, yes, this is true. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry for the little technical mishap. All right. So let's just summarize what we've gone over. It's important to understand that the medical support authority and when it's used, to understand it. Just make sure that if you're going to offer this, if I can give any advice, is get informed about what you're offering. Don't provide, oh, I think you can do this, because you know what? The managers are going to say, they're going to latch onto that. I think you can do that. They're going to hear, yes, it can be done. So make sure that you look things over before you offer it, and make sure that you go well prepared to meet with your hiring managers. Now, medical support authority should be used to appoint medical support personnel on a temporary basis when it's not practical to recruit through typical competitive procedures. It is not used to a point of non-medical supports for successive appointments in a position on a temporary basis when the position is continuous in nature. And the last point is that the medical support authority may be used for certain research positions, but it must be appropriately justified, and the position must be tied to a specific research project. So with that said, I think that's all the information that I have for you. Now we can open the chat to questions. Hopefully I have an answer for you. If I don't have an answer, or if I can think of it right at the moment, I'll definitely take it back, ensure that I give you a proper answer, research it, and provide it to the entire team. If somebody has a question, you may come off mute, or you can type it on the chat, and we can move on. If there are no questions, then I just want to wrap up. I always like to encourage people. I have been on the side of staffing for many years. I know it's very hard work. And I came across this quote the other day, and I thought I'd share it. And it says, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. And that was said by Martin Luther King Jr. So I want to encourage you, keep moving forward, stick to the guidance. You won't go wrong if you stick to guidance. Don't fall to pressure, because the pressure will move along, but you will have to provide an answer, and then you're the one in the jam. Okay. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for attending this class. I wish you to have a great rest of the week. Don't close the chat, because I will post on this chat right here all of the resources and all of the links that I went over for you to save them on your favorites. And with that said, I conclude my training, and I hope that it's been beneficial. I hope that it brought a little bit of clarity, and I hope that it can be used in the future. Okay. And if you ever have any questions, just reach out to us, reach out to me via Teams. If I don't get back to you right away, I will definitely will. Okay. If you don't mind clicking on this survey and giving me a little bit of feedback, it'll help me. Just give me some honest feedback. It'll help me prepare for my future classes, and I will definitely appreciate it, and will be a benefit for myself and for our team.